Parking his car, Dr. Russell Fowler hurried towards the hospital building. He was halfway to the main entrance when he heard an agitated female voice coming from the hospital garden. "I beg you, please help. Sell the car," the voice pleaded. Russell involuntarily paused. Peering into the depths of the autumn garden, he saw something that initially puzzled him. A girl, kneeling, clutching the jacket of a man standing beside her, and almost shouting for help. "I'm begging you, help. He calls you daddy. He needs your help. Please," she implored. "I have no money. The bailiffs take alimony from me. I spend money on petrol, buy groceries. Where am I supposed to get money for you? I have no money, and I won't sell the car," the man retorted. "Then leave us alone and don't show up again. Take your things and leave." The woman finally fell silent, and Russell, scrutinizing her carefully, recognized Jennifer, the mother of one of his patients. The mother of 4-year-old Kyle Frost from the 5th Ward. Overwhelmed by tears, Jennifer continued to kneel, leaning her elbows on the bench. It was evident that she hadn't stopped crying, her thin shoulders still trembling. The man who refused Jennifer's plea for help hastily left the garden. Russell decided to approach Kyle's mother and help her stand. "Jennifer," Russell said uncertainly, "get up. There's no need for this. It's damp here, and overall, please calm down. Let's go to the building. To your son." Jennifer turned at the sound of his voice and apparently recognized Russell immediately. She hurried to rise from her knees, quickly composed herself, and replied, "Hello, doctor. Sorry. We were having a family conversation here. I apologize." "You have nothing to apologize for," Russell replied. "It's me who should apologize. I didn't know you were talking to your husband. I completely misjudged the situation. I thought someone was mistreating a woman, but I was wrong. So, that was Kyle's dad, right?" No, Jennifer replied softly. "Not dad. We don't have a dad. He's a stepfather. But Kyle called him dad," she said quietly. "And now he won't." In reality, when Kyle was born, he did have a father. But it was only a few hours after his birth, and then he was gone. Patrick, the father of the newborn boy, while Jennifer was in a postpartum state in the hospital, decided to celebrate the birth of his heir with friends. At some point, they ran out of alcohol, and Patrick decided to ride his electric scooter to the store to get more. Patrick's friends waited for hours, but he never showed up. Later, they found out that Patrick hadn't ditched them, as they initially thought. He had crashed, fell off his scooter. Speeding, he failed to make a turn, hit the asphalt with his head, and never got up again. He was brought to the hospital by an ambulance, where he passed away without regaining consciousness. The blow dealt by fate was overwhelming for the young mother. Jennifer loved her husband and couldn't imagine life without Patrick. Sometimes she even wanted to follow him, but the little, screaming bundle made her stay. Due to the shock, Jennifer lost her milk. Now Kyle would have to be fed from a bottle. Artificial feeding required a lot of effort. It was necessary to choose and purchase suitable formula milk, and then prepare it correctly. Daily maternal duties inadvertently forced Jennifer to switch from reminiscing about the past to dealing with the present, gradually forgetting about those happy days associated with Patrick. So a whole year passed. 2 years after Patrick's death, Jennifer met Clayton and started living with him. At the time of their acquaintance, Clayton already had experience in family life. He had lived with his ex-wife for only a year, but they couldn't get along. In order not to exhaust themselves and his ex-wife with constant lack of sleep, they decided to part ways. Clayton had a 6-year-old daughter from his first marriage. As Jennifer later realized, Clayton was a self-centered person, not too generous either. He avoided financially contributing to raising his daughter, although he had promised to pay $300 a month in child support to his ex-wife upon their divorce. He paid the amount for a few months and then just stopped. He justified his refusal to provide financial support by claiming that his money didn't fully reach his daughter, as his ex-wife spent it only on herself. Clayton came to this conclusion after once seeing his ex-wife at a pizzeria, where she modestly celebrated her birthday with a friend. "So, here I am, working, earning," complained Clayton, "while she's out there spending my money in bars and nightclubs. And meanwhile, our daughter is staying at her grandmother's, wearing hand-me-downs from who knows where." His ex-wife didn't let it slide. She filed a claim in court to collect child support from Clayton. The court sided with her, but Clayton didn't change his ways. He brought a certificate from his workplace to the bailiff service, stating that his monthly earnings didn't exceed the subsistence level. Now his daughter received only $50 a month from her father for her upbringing. Clayton's greed wasn't limited to his dealings with his first family. It also affected his new family life. In his relationship with Jennifer, Clayton was essentially unemployed. Jennifer supported the whole family on her cashier's salary and Kyle's allowance. Clayton didn't contribute financially. Once a week, he brought home a kilogram of sugar, 3 kilograms of pasta, a packet of tea, and some vegetables or fruits. Meanwhile, in the year of living with Jennifer, he bought himself a used car and registered it under his mother's name. It was this car that Jennifer asked Clayton to sell when she talked to him in the hospital garden. But now she realized she had asked in vain. Although somewhere deep down she hoped he would show at least a little humanity and still help her and her only son. But Clayton didn't listen to her pleas. Truth be told, from the very beginning, he behaved as if Kyle's illness didn't concern him at all. A month ago, when Jennifer learned about it, she cried and couldn't find peace to calm herself. And Clayton just said to her in consolation, "Don't cry. Nothing terrible happened. Everyone gets sick with something in childhood. For example, I had mumps when I was a kid. My mom also cried when she found out. But I turned out fine, grew up, got stronger, and all those ailments went away on their own. So, your Kyle will recover with time, grow up, and the tumor will go away on its own." Jennifer couldn't bait and sharply replied, "Are you crazy? Do you even understand the difference between mumps and Kyle's illness?" But Clayton remained calm and stuck to his opinion. "There's nothing to understand here. A tumor is a tumor. It'll go away." "How will it go away?" Jennifer persisted. "What are you talking about? It's growing day by day. You just can't see it because it's inside." Talking to Clayton was pointless. And after today's encounter, Jennifer completely crossed him out of her life. Enough. It's better to live alone than with such an insensitive and greedy person. Kyle's illness was progressing. An urgent surgery was needed. In the pediatric oncology department where the boy was, urgent surgeries weren't performed. They had to wait for their turn. But there was no time to wait. The surgery needed to be done urgently. In a reputable clinic in Boston, where Jennifer sought help, they calculated all the expenses and presented the bill. Jennifer had never had that much money, but without hesitation, she started looking for it. Both sets of grandparents, and she herself, had raised half of the required amount, but about the same amount was still needed. If only Clayton had agreed to sell the car, they could have paid for the expensive surgery. But Clayton refused to help. Jennifer had already approached banks for loans, but they refused to grant her a loan. Her cashier's salary was too insignificant to qualify for a large loan. Moreover, the borrower didn't have a positive credit history. There was still one hope to get the much-needed money. This idea occurred to Jennifer yesterday when she returned to the hospital to her beloved child after another unsuccessful trip to the bank. Jennifer snapped out of her heavy thoughts when she heard the voice of the doctor working beside her again. Russell asked, "I overheard your conversation. You asked for money." He refused. "Right, yes, he refused," Jennifer replied. "But today I'll try to go to one more place. I've already collected half of the money. And maybe by evening, I'll have the full amount." "Well, you try your best, Jennifer," Russell said sympathetically. "Try. Time is running out." Kyle's test results from yesterday, to tell you the truth, weren't very good. The morning encounter with Kyle Frost's mother and the inadvertently overheard family conversation between the woman and the child's stepfather in the hospital garden troubled Dr. Russell. Of course, Russell didn't judge the man in the black jacket who refused to sell the car. It's hard to judge. And did Russell himself have the right to judge others? From the moment Russell first met Jennifer, the mother of little Kyle, he noticed a resemblance to his late wife, Donna, whom he lost 5 years ago. Jennifer didn't resemble Donna physically, but her maternal sense of responsibility for her son was just as desperate as his wife's had been before her untimely passing. Memories involuntarily flooded Russell's mind. His accidental encounter with the lovely Donna had turned into true love. Their first meeting happened on the street, in the city's pedestrian zone. The heat of the summer city suddenly made the girl feel unwell. She staggered and nearly fell. As a doctor and a decent young man, Russell couldn't just pass by. He helped her, steadied her on her high heels, and escorted her to the nearest bench. Russell was instantly charmed by the girl. He asked for her phone number, then called her. They started dating. The chance encounter with the sweet girl blossomed into a real love. A year after their first meeting, Russell proposed to Donna, and she accepted. 2 months later, they got married and moved into his apartment, where he had lived alone after his mother's death. Donna turned out to be gentle, submissive, and always tried to please her husband in everything. She kept the house clean and tidy, always greeted the doctor tired after his shifts with a deliciously cooked dinner. Donna always attracted Russell. She gave him love, tenderness, domestic comfort, and self-confidence. Russell felt that with Donna by his side, he became smarter, stronger, and more self-sufficient. Completely different from how he sometimes was in public without her. 2 years into their married life, Donna gave birth to a son, whom the happy parents named Phineas. The young doctor was truly happy. He adored his son and beloved wife. Now, after finishing work, Russell hurried home even more eagerly to kiss and hug his dear ones and spend time with them. But one day, a directive came to the hospital where the young surgeon from the Ministry of Health worked. They needed to send one of the doctors for an exchange program to a leading clinic in Boston. They started looking for a candidate. There were no volunteers for a long business trip. No one wanted to be away from their daily duties and worries, living for 3 months in unfamiliar hotel conditions, getting used to working in an unfamiliar team. But they needed someone for the exchange program. It was a directive from above that had to be followed, and they found the person. Russell Fowler was chosen. Firstly, he was young and promising. Secondly, he had never been on business trips before. Thirdly, that was the decision of the chief physician at the Boston clinic where Russell found himself. There were many talented young doctors, but Irma Webster stood out. She was a budding surgeon, already showing great promise. A young, slender beauty with a sharp character. She became a true star of the hospital. Russell met her for the first time during one of the surgeries where they both assisted a renowned city surgeon. Russell's attention was immediately drawn to the enigmatic eyes of his partner, peering at him through the gap between the medical mask covering the lower part of her face and the cap covering her head. Russell somehow thought that beneath the medical gear was a very beautiful woman, a suspicion that was later confirmed. The operation proceeded smoothly, calmly. Irma silently and precisely followed the commands of the experienced chief surgeon, attentively watching his every move. But suddenly, at a crucial moment, the assistant entered into a dispute with the surgeon, stubbornly trying to defend her point of view. Nurses and the anesthesiologist looked at her in shock. Russell also tried to calm the girl down, but she simply brushed him off. The authoritative surgeon was taken aback by the audacity of the assisting doctor. Of course, he did things as he saw fit, ignoring the advice of the young assistant. However, later, after a few hours, he admitted that Irma had been right. The professor's acknowledgement surprised everyone then, and Irma began to be looked at differently. She gained respect, and people began to listen to her opinion. The workday came to an end. It was time to hand over the shift. Russell completed the necessary paperwork, handed over his tasks, and headed to his car. Outside, there was mud on the street, wet snow coming and going. The autumn cold penetrated through his jacket. Russell shivered and got into the car. How nice it is at home right now. Warm, cozy. There's Donna and Phineas. My favorites. Russell thought to himself. Once again, Russell tried to start the engine, but the car stubbornly refused to start. A check of the engine yielded no results. Russell decided to take the bus to the hotel and deal with the car tomorrow morning. He was halfway to the bus stop when a bright red car abruptly stopped next to him. The front side window of the car slowly rolled down. Having car trouble? Are you headed to the hotel? Amma asked, smiling at her colleague. And without waiting for an answer, she said, hop in. We're going the same way. Russell initially tried to decline Emma's offer, but then suddenly agreed. The car smelled of her perfume, bold and daring, just like her. Emma sharply pressed on the gas pedal, and the car sped off on the icy road. Russell grew nervous. He tightly gripped the door handle with his right hand, his left hand squeezing his slightly trembling knee. Emma's behavior stood up Russell. Don't worry. Extreme driving is my thing. She smiled. I love speed, and I'm good at driving. I've been behind the wheel since I was 8, and I used to do karting in school. I have medals and trophies. I'm not afraid for myself, Russell said, trying to justify his discomfort at the sensation of furious speed. I have a family, a wife and a little son. They need me alive. Oh, you are married. Then, of course, there's something to be afraid of. I used to be married too. Now I'm single. I kicked him out. He was jealous. Said I worked too much. Came home late. Well, I got tired of his whining, so I kicked him out. Does your wife get jealous? No, she's not the jealous type. Russell smiled, remembering Donna and Phineas. She understands that there's a job that requires me not always being home overnight. So you are lucky, the girl said and inexplicably fell silent. Russell suddenly felt that it wasn't difficult at all to be around Irma, even comfortable. There was no tension between them, which is usually present between acquaintances. He felt like he and Irma had known each other for 1,000 years, and that he could just casually ask her anything, and she would answer his questions without hesitation. Within 15 minutes, the car stopped at the hotel. Russell thanked his colleague and, saying goodbye, got out of the car. Once in his room, Russell called Donna. For some reason, he really wanted to hear his beloved's voice right now. Hello, Donna. Hi, honey. How are you? How's Phineas? I just got off work. No, I haven't had dinner. I'll grab a bite somewhere. Yes, I'm a little tired. Getting used to it and counting the days until I come back home. Come back soon. We miss you, Phineas and I, came the voice that felt so dear. Starting next week, I'll start enrolling Phineas in daycare. All right, Daddy. We're sending kisses and love. Bye. Days went by. Russell found himself conversing more often with his young colleague, Irma. Getting to know her better, he realized that Irma was an extraordinary person, a true talent. Her courage and decisiveness often helped the surgical team make the right decisions and change the course of operations in the necessary direction. You're very capable, gifted by nature. But why are you still a regular doctor? Russell once asked his colleague, after finishing a complex operation. Everyone present in the operating room fell silent, awaiting her response. Irma smirked. Don't you understand it yourself? I'm troublesome. The chief physician sees me as a troublemaker, and such people don't become leading specialists soon. That's all. They don't know how to blindly follow orders. They show excessive independence, which sometimes contradicts the opinion of the management. So, it's too early for me to take on leading managerial positions. Irma suddenly glanced mischievously at those present and asked, Isn't that right, colleagues, everyone smiled and felt embarrassed. The smiles and embarrassment meant a silent agreement, which could be articulated with the following words. Yes, Irma, you're not an easy one. And Russell, listening to Irma's response, silently thanked fate for giving him the opportunity to work and communicate with this smart, cheerful, and beautiful woman. More and more often, Russell began to compare Irma with his Donna. His Donna was gentle, obedient, always agreeing with him and sympathizing with him if he talked about any difficulties at work or in life. Irma, on the other hand, was as untamed as a wild deer, passionately fighting for and defending her point of view. She often suggested the right solutions rather than expressing sympathy. Russell sometimes saw himself in her. He himself was like that in his youth. Passionate, rebellious, loving adventure. And then, suddenly, his mother was gone. The only and dearest person in the world. Russell was deeply frightened at that time. At 22, in his final year of medical school, he was left alone. He had to learn to do everything by himself, without a close person. It turned out that this incident deprived him of his unrestrained energy. It made him calm and cautious. He suppressed his desires and emotions, as if putting on a different garment. The invisible new suit prevented him from making sudden movements, determined the depth of his breathing and the width of his step, cooled down his fervent emotions. It made him behave more cautiously and restrained. Perhaps that's why he chose Donna as his wife back then. She attracted Russell with her ability to create warmth and comfort. She was predictable, reliable. Donna was like a mother. It was warm, easy, cozy, and calm with her. They lived wonderfully with Donna. She always obeyed him. If there was ever any disagreement due to Donna's fault, Russell would have been greatly surprised. Donna's obedience was a comfort to him, someone who had put on the suit of caution and prudence. But after meeting Irma, Russell found his wife's femininity suddenly uninteresting, too boring. Russell suddenly wanted to strip off the annoying restricting jacket, take off the trousers with creases, put on a sweater, jeans, and live with the feelings and emotions he had in his turbulent student days. Dr. Russell. The voice of the senior nurse came from the half-open door of the office. Dr. Russell, it's time for rounds. Yes, I'm coming, he responded, rising from his chair. I'm on my way. Jennifer understood that she couldn't delay any longer. Time only stretched the spring of illness and could release it at any moment. Then the blow would be sharp, possibly deadly, for the only and most precious being in this world. Her beloved son, Kyle. Today, in the afternoon, Jennifer was planning to go in search of money. Yesterday, on her way back to the hospital, she noticed a bright sign on the facade of one of the city buildings. A financial organization offered microloans. Jennifer knew perfectly well what a microloan was and had even used such a service once. She borrowed $500 and a month later had to pay back $800. But now the interest rates didn't matter. The main thing was to get the missing amount to pay for her beloved child's treatment. She would work it off later. The main thing now was to get the money. Jennifer's plan was simple. She needed to visit 10 microfinance organizations and arrange at least $500 in each. What would happen next didn't bother Jennifer. The only thing that mattered was to save her son. Jennifer didn't manage to get out into the city that day. After saying goodbye to the doctor treating her son, in the lobby of the building, she put on a hospital gown and headed to her son in the reception room. Kyle was already awake and waiting for his mom, playing with his favorite teddy bear. "How are you, son?" Jennifer asked, noting to herself that her son looked much worse than usual. "Does anything hurt?" "Yes, it hurts," he said softly, placing the teddy bear on the edge of the bed. "Have you seen Dad Clayton?" Jennifer paused for a moment, recalling her meeting with him, and said, holding back tears, "Yes, son, I have seen him. Will he come to me?" Kyle asked. "He will, son, he will," Jennifer replied. "He will definitely come, Mama. But when?" "Tomorrow." The boy persisted. "No, No, not tomorrow, Jennifer replied. He will come to you when you get better. They won't let him in right now. You know that only moms are allowed with you. All the boys and girls here only with their moms. Where have you ever seen a dad here? And Kyle fell silent, feeling that his mom was starting to get angry for some reason. And he continued to play with his stuffed friend. Over the past month, Kyle had grown up a lot. He began to understand his mother's mood, stopped being capricious, and wasn't afraid to be alone. From the very beginning, Jennifer didn't hide the fact that he was sick and needed to listen to his mom and doctors in everything to become healthy again. It seemed like he somehow understood his mother's words with a child's intuition and became more restrained in his desires and whims. He tried to align his behavior with his mother's wishes, always asking for her permission before doing anything independently. Kyle, I'll stay with you until lunchtime. Then I'll feed you and be away for a short while. Will you stay here? Okay. Jennifer set up her son before heading out to the microfinance organizations to borrow the money needed for the surgery. Will you be gone for long? Kyle worried. No, honey, I'll be back. Jennifer didn't finish her sentence as the nurse entered the room, disrupting all her plans. In half an hour, it's time for procedures and examinations. Mom's here. Prepare the child, the nurse said. But I need to leave after lunch, Jennifer objected anxiously. I didn't know about the examination today. No one told me. I'm going. I need to find money for my son's treatment. Earlier, nobody told you, but now I am telling you. Examinations and procedures are scheduled in half an hour, the nurse reiterated. And remember, Mom, there's a queue for everything here. If you miss the procedures, it could end badly. Think about your son. That's exactly what I'm thinking about. He needs a paid operation. I know it's first come, first served here, but he may not survive the wait. I didn't receive any specific instructions regarding you. The nurse defended herself. And I don't know anything. You have procedures. For all other matters, please discuss with the head of the department. Go to him. Whatever he says goes. Jennifer looked into her son's eyes, moved the teddy bear closer to him, and left the ward. Entering the office of the department head, Jennifer asked to reschedule today's examinations and procedures for her son to tomorrow. She explained that she couldn't be with her son at the specified time today because she had urgent matters in the city. Dear, you're in a medical facility here, actually. Not in a hotel or on vacation. The head of the department began to explain, refusing to reschedule the procedures. Understand, everything is planned and scheduled here, and I can't postpone or reschedule. So, please, stick to the schedule. Once you are done with the procedures, you're free to go wherever you need. Arguing with the head of the department was futile. Jennifer impatiently awaited the rounds and scheduled procedures. She hoped everything would end quickly so she could go to the city. Jennifer wanted the conversation with the doctor to happen as soon as possible. She would listen quietly, nod again, and then when the doctor left, she could go to the city to raise money for her son's treatment. Russell entered the ward swiftly, as if he had good news. Hello, Kyle. How are you feeling today? Russell asked. I'm sick, Kyle replied, but not too bad. So, not too bad. What does that mean? The doctor inquired. He took the patient's chart, where the results of the morning tests were indicated. I want to go for a walk, the little patient replied. Going for a walk? That's wonderful. It means you'll be working soon, Russell said. Just let us cure you, and you'll be walking. The doctor's face showed concern, and Jennifer realized time was slipping away. The doctor tried to joke, but it sounded forced and strained. Both Jennifer and even Kyle understood that. The medical examination and treatments took longer than Jennifer expected. It was too late to go to the city. Another day, granted for Kyle's recovery, was irretrievably lost. After completing the rounds, Dr. Russell entered his office and sat down. He was concerned about the critical condition of one of the patients, Kyle Frost. The boy was almost doomed. The disease was progressing. It was a pity for them. His mother was deeply distressed. Russell looked thoughtfully and tensely out of the window. It was autumn, with a fine drizzle falling, and the last yellow leaves were falling from the trees. Memories brought the doctor back to the past. Exactly a month had passed since Dr. Russell began absorbing the expertise of Boston surgeons in the field of surgery. Russell often found himself assisting professor surgeons during operations, and he frequently partnered with Irma. The established duo of assistant doctors pleased everyone. It was evident to all that Irma's impulsive and headstrong nature was balanced by Russell's calm and reserved demeanor. Surgeries involving Irma and Russell proceeded without unpredictable incidents. Russell seemed to mesmerize Irma. In his presence, she became calmer. With Irma, it was easy for him both in and out of work. She didn't inquire about Russell's family life or pry into his personal affairs. But Russell increasingly caught her glances. He dismissed the thought of something more. But then, one day, that something more happened. During that night shift, they were working together again. The evening was quiet, with very few patients coming in. Russell and Irma decided to have a snack and drink coffee. While Russell was standing by the coffee maker, waiting for the cups to fill with the aromatic, invigorating beverage, he suddenly felt Irma's gentle hands on his shoulders. She tenderly turned him towards her and pressed her lips to his. Russell had both anticipated and feared this kiss. The facade of a devoted family man's suit burst at the seams and fell apart. Comfortable jeans and a sweater once again snugly hugged his slender, toned body, as they did in his youth. Russell betrayed his Donna, betrayed little Phineas. But at that moment, he didn't fully realize it. Irma had almost completely occupied his heart. Now, Russell only called Donna at home because it was necessary to do so, to avoid arousing suspicion of infidelity from his wife, and also to find out how his son was growing up. Russell snapped out of his reverie and decided to visit the department head. He seemed to have an idea. "Hello, Dr. Watson," greeted Russell as he entered the chief's office. "I'm here about the surgery schedule. Morgan's operation has been postponed for a week. Perhaps we could operate on Kyle Frost the day after tomorrow instead. I fear the boy won't survive until his scheduled surgery. His test results are very poor, and his turn isn't for another month. You understand?" The department head grimaced at this suggestion as if suddenly struck by a toothache. "Russell, why are you trying to stress me out? Is this your first day here? Don't you know we have a surgery queue? Don't you know what will happen if I break protocol?" "I understand, Dr. Watson," said Russell calmly. "Do we have a choice? Because this boy doesn't." "No, Russell, I don't have a choice either. They all need to be first in line for surgery. They all need urgent operations. But understand, I'm neither a god nor a magician. I can't make all the rooms empty tomorrow, so there are no sick boys or girls. I would perform surgeries with my own hands around the clock to make that happen. But I can't. So, I can't do it all. There's a queue. What do I tell the other parents who ask me? Why was someone operated on earlier when they arrived later? What about Kyle Frost? His mother came to see me this morning, by the way, asking to be released somewhere. Do you know where she was planning to go?" "I think she's looking for money for a private surgery," said Russell. "She doesn't believe her son will survive until the scheduled operation." "Well, if there's money, it's better to go to Boston for a private surgery," agreed the department head. "You can save time, and the conditions there are better." "That's the thing. She doesn't have the money," Russell countered. "I witnessed her humiliation this morning as she begged her boyfriend, even crawling on her knees on the street, asking him to sell his car." "Did he agree to it?" Dr. Watson asked, intrigued. "No, that's the thing. He didn't," replied Russell. "And he didn't even listen to her. Just walked away." The conversation ended with no resolution. The department head never agreed to an unscheduled surgery for Kyle Frost. Russell understood that it wasn't because he lacked compassion, but simply because he couldn't. All the children needed urgent surgery, but Russell couldn't shake off the situation with Kyle. The doctor took the misfortune of this boy and his mother too close to heart, and there were explanations for this feeling. Returning home after his shift, Russell took a shower, worked into the kitchen, and put the kettle on the gas stove. His thoughts drifted back to that long-ago business trip. Since that kiss, Russell had been spending all his free time with Irma. He practically moved from his hotel room to her one-bedroom apartment. During this time, neither he nor Irma, brought up the topic of Donna, what to do with her, what the future held for them. They selfishly enjoyed each other's company, not thinking about tomorrow. And then disaster struck. Russell vividly remembered that day. Donna called when his day shift was ending, and he and Irma were about to leave the clinic to retreat to her apartment as usual. Russell was with Irma when Donna called. She was crying, barely able to speak through her sobs. "You know, I was preparing Phineas for kindergarten. We were getting his medical records. He had some tests done. We visited doctors. Russell, Phineas is sick. Can you hear me? Phineas is sick. He has cancer." What are you saying? Are you out of your mind? This must be some mistake. Who told you that? Russell exclaimed, listening to his wife's hopeless sobbing. Russell, it's not a mistake. I read the diagnosis. I saw it myself. Please come. Please, Donna pleaded. We need to do something. Come. Okay, I'll be there in the morning. Wait, Russell replied. Irma approached and stopped behind him. Is something wrong? She asked. Yes, something is wrong, Russell replied, without looking at her. My son is sick. I need to go home. Everything will be okay, Irma said loudly and firmly. Do you hear me? Everything will be okay. Don't worry. Russell flinched at her don't worry. He just shook his head and said, I'm not worried. Sorry, I met you, and everything changed in my life. It's like I woke up, came alive. I felt good with you. But Donna is not to blame for anything. I promised her to always be there, no matter what. And now she's in a very bad place. My son is in a bad place. I am in a bad place. I betrayed her and Phineas, but he will recover for sure. I'll be there for her always. You understand? I'm leaving. Irma tried to ask him something else, tried to explain something, but Russell didn't hear her anymore. He just mechanically nodded, not taking in his lover's words. He felt his child's life was in danger. In that moment, he keenly felt the value of his family, how much he loved his wife and little son. He regretted every minute spent away from them, and he felt, at that moment, that he was to blame for everything. This was the price for his betrayal. That very evening, Russell left for home, to his hometown. He left without waiting for dawn. He left in the night. The boiling kettle brought Russell back to reality. Suddenly, he didn't feel like having tea anymore. The doctor got up and walked into the bedroom. There, sitting in an armchair, he pulled out the top drawer of the writing desk. From it, he took out an old wooden box. In their family, this box had always held the most valuable items, even when his mother was alive. It contained his mother's only pair of gold earrings, which he wore only on special occasions. There were also savings earmarked for a major purchase and old bonds obtained by his grandmother in the post-war years. Even without his mother, Russell continued to use the wooden box with its semicircular lid as a home safe. Later, Donna also kept money here. During his time alone, Russell hadn't changed the system established by his mother. The money he didn't manage to spend before payday was kept in this same box. However, not all the money he had accumulated over the years was in the wooden box. Part of it was in his bank account. Russell took out the neatly stacked bills from the box and began to count them. If Kyle's mom really has half of what was needed for the private surgery for Kyle, then there should be enough money. The doctor isn't. We just need to choose a clinic and get in touch with them. Russell turned on his laptop, waited for the computer to boot up, and typed into the search bar, oncology, private clinics. The search engine returned several dozen results. Russell began to carefully study the services offered. The man fell asleep long after midnight. The next day, Russell, without having had time to change in his scrubs, immediately asked the nurse to bring Kyle Frost's mother from the 5th ward to his office. About 3 minutes later, there was a knock on the door of his office. "Dr. Russell, did you call for me?" Jennifer asked, entering the room uncertainly. "Yes, Jennifer," he replied. "Please, have a seat. I need to talk to you. How's Kyle? Did he sleep well?" "He slept, but he woke up twice. He's having some bad dreams. He says he's scared." Jennifer replied quietly. "Yes, that happens," the doctor confirmed. "It happens even to healthy children, especially sensitive ones. But I wanted to talk to you about something else. By the way, I was afraid I wouldn't catch you. You were going somewhere yesterday. Won't you go now?" "I will go. I'm going after my rounds." "For money," Jennifer replied. "And what? Have you already decided on a specific place? Have you made arrangements already?" The doctor inquired. "Yes, specifically," Jennifer confirmed. "And not just one. I've written down the addresses. I need to visit 10 places today. It's simple. I'll apply at each one." "Are you going for payday loans?" the doctor asked, surprised. "Yes," Jennifer confirmed. "What else can I do? Banks won't give me credit." "Well, payday loan companies won't give you credit either," Russell said confidently. "Why?" Jennifer asked, looking puzzled at the doctor. "These organizations in our town have one owner. They check borrowers against their database. You won't get more than $500. I know, you are not the first person who's tried this, but those people didn't succeed because it's all one database. Although the law doesn't prohibit taking out multiple loans at once. But believe me, you won't get several," Russell explained. "What am I supposed to do then?" Tears welled up in Jennifer's eyes. "I thought I could make it work." "I'm sorry," the doctor sympathized. "I have another offer for you, a more viable and morally correct one." "Yes, what is it?" Jennifer brightened up. "I agree. What's the offer, doctor? Please tell me." "Well, I'll give you the missing amount for the surgery," he said. "I'll also choose the clinic myself, and it'll be easier for me to do that. And I'm coming with you." "All right." Jennifer didn't respond right away. A lump formed in her throat, and tears welled up in her grateful eyes. "Please, calm down, Jennifer," Russell said softly, offering her a tissue. After wiping away her tears, Jennifer spoke up. Doctor, thank you, Russell. I'll give everything back. I'll pay back the money bit by bit. Okay, I'll work for it. When Kyle gets better and goes to daycare, I'll start earning and pay it all back. Thank you. And when are we leaving?" "I hope today or tomorrow," the doctor replied. "I'm going to the head of the department's office now, and then I'll come to your ward and tell you everything. Get the child ready." After speaking with Jennifer, Russell went to the head of the department's office. "Hello, Russell." Dr. Watson greeted him, back with another proposal. "Well, let's hear it. It's not about Kyle Frost again, I hope." "No, you didn't guess right this time, sir," Russell replied in a tone of camaraderie. "But he's precisely who's on my mind." "What's going on with you, Russell?" Dr. Watson asked, surprised. "We sorted everything out yesterday. I told you I couldn't break the queue." "Relax. It's not about the queue," Russell replied. "It's something else entirely. You see, I want to take Frost with me to Boston for a few days. I'll cover their surgery expenses there and oversee everything. I need to see that boy healthy. It's very important to me, you understand?" I understand, he replied without meeting Russell's gaze. "You're thinking about Phineas again, aren't you? Go ahead. Just make sure to double-check all the paperwork and everything that's required." It took about 6 hours to drive to Boston. They were supposed to arrive at 4 p.m., according to Russell's calculations. Before leaving, with the office door open, Russell overheard the senior nurse and a very young one whispering at the medical station, discussing Kyle Frost and Dr. Russell's sudden departure to Boston. "Did you hear? Frost from the 5th Ward is leaving. They say Russell paid for their surgery in Boston." One said, "Yeah, I heard. But not the whole surgery. Just half. Jennifer had the other half." The other replied, "Why does it matter? It's still a lot of money. You know, some people say that this boy Kyle is Russell's illegitimate son. Come on. That's nonsense. He loved and still loves his family. Don't you know anything about his family? Does he even have a family?" "He did. He had a son, just as calm as Russell. I saw that boy. His wife was Donna. They passed away." "So, why did they die?" "Why? They sought help too late. While Russell was on a business trip, the pediatrician didn't notice anything, and then a tumor was discovered in his son. By the time they got through the queue, in short, it was too late. They couldn't save the boy and his wife. Donna couldn't bear the loss of her son and followed him. What a tragedy. How did he, poor thing, endure all of that?" "He endured it, as you can see. He ended up in intensive care himself, but pulled through, thank God. Then he asked to work with us, changed his specialty, and Frost must have reminded him of his family. The boy Kyle is very much like his son, Phineas, just as calm and thoughtful. Russell's sense of guilt is still alive, it seems. He probably can't forgive himself for not being able to help his son back then. Well, enough talking about this. Let's get to work." Yes, the feeling of guilt hadn't subsided over the years. It continued to painfully haunt his memory. Several years ago, he drove this road, but in the opposite direction. He was hurrying back to his hometown, hoping to convince himself that his wife was lying, that it was some monstrous mistake. It couldn't be true that his Phineas was ill with this terrible, incurable disease. Russell drove the car all night then. It seemed to him that the road would never end. The diagnosis made by Russell's classmate, the young oncologist Dr. Watson, turned out to be correct. Phineas, his only son, was terminally ill. He had no more than 2 months to live. It was too late for surgery. Surgical intervention couldn't save him anymore. Time had been missed, and his son was fading away before his eyes. 9 days after Phineas' death, the woman voluntarily left this life, taking several packs of sleeping pills. In her suicide note, she left a few words. "I can't bear the loss of our son. Forgive me, and farewell." Russell was completely devastated and morally shattered. He couldn't believe that his wife decided to end her life, but she did. He felt immense guilt for not being able to help her overcome the pain caused by the loss of their son. His heart was shattered into thousands of pieces. Russell saw no meaning in life without Donna and Phineas. He spent long nights in deep sorrow and contemplation. He reread Donna's suicide note again and again, trying to find answers to her actions. At his wife's memorial service, Russell lost consciousness. Clinical death was the result of nervous strain. He didn't remember how he ended up in the intensive care unit, but he vividly remembered the dream he had while in the intensive care unit. He saw Donna and Phineas on the shore of the sea. They sat by the edge of the turquoise water, everything around emanating a warm, indescribable light. Russell approached them, waving joyfully. Finally, they noticed him and waved back. Russell came very close, trying to hug and kiss them, his dearest and beloved ones. But he couldn't do anything. His hands embraced emptiness. They laughed at his awkwardness. "You're doing this in vain. You won't succeed. We're not yours anymore. We don't need you. Phineas and I are better off without you," Donna said. "Mama, let's go swimming." Phineas begged Donna. "Let Dad go away from us. He doesn't know how to swim. Let him go to the hospital. There are many little children there. They need saving. Let him go." Donna laughed then. "Did you hear? Your son is sending you away. Why did you come? Leave." she said. Russell then made a desperate attempt to run after them into the sea, but he couldn't do anything again. The gentle turquoise water pushed him away. He tried to jump again, but the sea wave threw him back onto the shore. Then he heard someone's voice. Doctor, Doctor, Dr. Russell. Look, he seems to be coming to. In the first few minutes, Russell didn't understand where he was. His dream with Donna and Phineas was still alive in his mind. Later, he often recalled this strange dream. He asked himself why he saw his wife and son at the sea, not in heaven. According to the Christian belief about death, innocent souls after completing their earthly journey go to heaven. Why the sea? He found the answer again in his unfulfilled promises. Before going on a business trip, Russell told Donna and little Phineas that he would take them to the sea in the summer, but he never fulfilled the promise. And then, after spending several days in the hospital ward, he made a promise to himself that he would fulfill the wish of his little son and would treat children suffering from cancer. Retraining as an oncology surgeon, Russell understood that he couldn't change the past, but he decided that he must find a way to cope with the loss and continue living in memory of his family. Russell then realized that only by helping others would he find meaning in his life, feel needed, and do something significant. After Russell's words about providing the missing amount for Kyle's surgery, Jennifer wanted to cry all the time. To cry and thank God for sending them a doctor like their treating physician. During the 2 weeks spent searching for the missing money, she encountered indifference so many times that she simply couldn't believe that there were still people in the world who could give money without any conditions or interest. Even the mother of the deceased Patrick, the grandmother of little Kyle, reacted with distrust to Jennifer's request for financial help. Giving her $3,000, she read Jennifer a whole sermon, promised 1,000 curses to Jennifer if she misused the money. Look, Jennifer, the former mother-in-law said, if I find out that my money didn't go to Kyle, I won't forgive you. Know that, you'll pay the price. I don't like deceit. I swear by my son's memory, you'll pay. All the diseases you speak of won't befall my grandson but you. And in the afterlife, for deception, you'll end up in hell. You'll be boiling in a cauldron with boiling tar. Jennifer then wanted to leave her mother-in-law's house as soon as possible to avoid listening to her groundless reproaches and evil prophecies. She wanted to leave without taking a penny from her, but she endured it because the money was very much needed. For the sake of her son, she was willing to listen to unjust words directed at her and to humble herself. And now all the humiliations were behind her. Now Jennifer believed that everything would be fine. She looked at the tall, confident figure of the doctor driving the car and silently prayed, "Oh Lord, give him happiness and health. What a good man he is. Lord, I've never met anyone like him before." Jennifer prayed to herself. The doctor felt Jennifer's gaze from the backseat with Kyle and asked, "How are you, Jennifer? Not tired? We'll reach a gas station soon. We'll stop there and rest a bit. Is Kyle asleep?" We're not tired," Jennifer replied. "You must have it tough. You're behind the wheel. And yes, Kyle is asleep. Are we still far from our destination?" "We've already covered more than half of the journey. Another 2 hours of driving and then about 40 minutes more through the city," Russell replied. "Russell, how did your family react to you leaving? And won't they be mad at you for taking the money?" Jennifer asked. "Jennifer, don't worry, they won't," Russell sharply replied. "There's no one to do that. I don't have a family. There used to be one. But now I'm alone, in a divorce." Then, Jennifer said somewhat casually and added, "I won't live with that person anymore, who regretted selling his car. I'll kick him out when we get back." For some reason, Russell didn't like how Kyle's mother qualified his loneliness. And he explained, "Listen, Jennifer, I'm not divorced. My wife and son, they're no longer here." Doctor, forgive me, please," Jennifer said. I didn't think. You're still young to be a widower. I thought you got divorced. I truly, deeply regret and sympathize." Accept my condolences. Thank you. Russell thanked her. And what happened to them? Jennifer asked. Why is no one left alive? You see, my son, who, by the way, looks like your Kyle. He died of cancer, and my wife couldn't bear his death and went voluntarily after him, Russell said. And after a few seconds of silence, he added, we'll be at the gas station now. You can get out for some fresh air if you want. Russell, Jennifer said to the doctor, when they had already left the gas station. How did it happen that you yourself are an oncologist? And your son? Jennifer, you see, I wasn't always an oncologist. It happened later. Besides, I wasn't with my family for a long time. I was on a business trip to Boston. My boy developed an aggressive form of cancer. Moreover, the diagnosis was delayed. There was nothing we could do anymore. Russell, I'm so sorry. I'm afraid. What if the same thing happens to Kyle? Jennifer asked, ready to cry again. No, Jennifer, calm down. That won't happen to Kyle. I promise you. Everything will be fine. The man replied. Memory brought Russell back to a few years ago. He remembered the conversation that took place between him and Irma on one of those evenings when they felt close again. What are you thinking about? Irma asked then, turning her head to the lover who was staring thoughtfully at the ceiling. Do you regret ending up in this bed? Russell didn't answer right away. After a few seconds of silence, he spoke. No, Irma, I don't regret ending up next to you. The hours and days spent with you have been a source of joy and happiness for me, unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. Our closeness allowed me to truly open up and understand myself. You've become a special part of my life. I've experienced a different kind of love with you, not the one I felt before you. But I'm not thinking about that now. Oh, what then, my dear? Irma asked, gently stroking his shoulder. Do you believe in God? He asked the girl. Well, how should I put it? I believe and I don't believe, she said. And why? Is it time for some philosophical discussion? Maybe. Anything is possible, Russell mused. Although now isn't the most suitable setting for philosophical conversations. But still, does God exist, in your opinion? According to me, harmony is God, Irma replied. Everything must be in harmony, in equal proportions, and it shouldn't be disturbed. Well, that's understandable. What goes up must come down. Russell perked up. But what about God's commandments? For example, thou shalt not commit adultery. Violating this commandment is one of the 7 deadly sins. Those who break it face divine punishment. Severe fate's retribution. Yes, Irma agreed. But please, don't confuse love with adultery. Although I understand you're talking about yourself right now. So answer this. What about living with someone you don't love? Is it sinful or righteous? I don't know, Russell replied. I haven't thought about it. Before you, everything was different. Reflecting on those days, Russell understood that everything that happened to him was not a coincidence. Meeting Irma was a test sent to him by fate, and he couldn't withstand that test. Every embrace with Irma, every kiss became a magic, an endless force of attraction that he didn't want and couldn't overcome. And even after all this time, Russell still remembered the sweet moments spent in the arms of that mysterious woman he met while on a business trip. These moments were stored in the hidden corners of Russell's consciousness. Meanwhile, Russell, Jennifer, and Kyle safely reached their destination. They were quickly and warmly welcomed at the medical center. The boy and his mother were accommodated in a room, while Dr. Russell booked a room in a hotel nearby. All matters regarding the upcoming surgery would be addressed in the morning. Paperwork took just over an hour. In fact, all the tests, scans, and other documents had been completed 2 days ago, so they remained current. There was no need for repeat examinations or waiting for results. The surgery was scheduled for the next day, and there was enough money for everything. Russell inquired about who would be performing the operation. He was told that the surgery would be carried out by Dr. Irma Webster, A candidate of medical sciences, Irma. Russell couldn't believe it. A candidate of medical sciences, Russell pondered. How many years have passed? Right, 5. But didn't Irma stand out for her abilities back then? She did. Of course, I myself said that she were talented, gifted by nature. Why aren't she the lead specialist? Well, now she's not only a lead, but she's even defended her candidate dissertation. Sounds impressive. Candidate of medical sciences Webster. Russell spotted her first. He was waiting for her outside. The woman skillfully parked her car in the clinic courtyard, jumped out of the car, and lightly made her way to the building, casually pressing the remote control. She hadn't changed at all. She just became more feminine, more beautiful. His heart pounded harder, and a strange feeling of joy and anxiety arose inside him. Irma. Russell called out. She slowed her pace but didn't stop or turn her head towards him. He called out to her again, but differently, slightly stronger, using her full name. Suddenly, it dawned on him that she wasn't Irma. She was there, 5 years ago, in the past life. Dr. Irma Webster. Now she looked at him and, as if remembering something, asked, "Are you here for me?" Russell was slightly surprised by the question. He felt like he hadn't changed at all over the years, except for a little more gray hair on his head. "Yes, I'm here for you." "Hello," Russell replied. "Didn't you recognize me? Or don't want to remember?" "Russell," she said, as if not believing her eyes. "Yes, it's me," he replied, trying to contain his excitement. "You seem to have not recognized me right away. Did I age that much?" "No, you haven't aged. I just didn't expect to see you here." "What are you doing here? Are you here for work or?" Irma didn't finish her sentence. "Yes," he replied. "I'm here for work. I brought the boy. They told me you would be performing the surgery. So I wanted to ask you, please help him. He means a lot to me." "Your son?" she asked. "No, not my son. My son died then, 5 years ago. I couldn't help him at all. This is another boy. He just resembles my son, and he's dear to me. Help him. Let's go to the clinic. You can tell me everything in detail there. I understand the boy was your patient until today. Right, bring me up to speed. There's still time, will talk." As the surgery approached with just half an hour left, Jennifer took her son in her arms, holding him close and softly humming a lullaby, gently rocking him as she did in the early days after his birth. She wanted to calm him, to impart all her strength to him so that the boy would easily undergo the operation and return to her alive and healthy. "Mom, will it hurt?" Kyle asked, looking into his mother's eyes. "No, sweetheart," she replied. "It won't hurt. You'll just fall asleep, and then you'll wake up, and we'll be together again, and I'll wake up healthy." "Right, Mom." "Of course, honey. Everything will be fine. Everything will be all right. You'll be good as new. Like a brand new toy," Jennifer reassured her little one. "Just don't be afraid." "Okay, I won't, Mom." A nurse entered the room, smiled at the mother and the boy. "Are you fussed? Come with me. You're invited to the operating room." Jennifer's heart clenched. She had carried Kyle in her arms all the way to where he was being prepared for surgery. The woman was asked to go back to the room. She wasn't allowed into the operating room. Russell reassured Jennifer, "Please, don't be afraid. Everything will be fine. I'll be with him." They allowed me. You wait. The next 5 hours became the longest and most difficult in her entire life. Jennifer suddenly realized her insignificance in this vast universe. She suddenly understood that she couldn't influence the outcome of the surgery, that all she could do was pray for her son to return to her alive. And the woman also realized that she couldn't imagine her future life without her son. Russell entered the room where Jennifer was, not hiding his good mood. "Everything's fine. The surgery was successful," he said. "Right now, Kyle is still asleep, but his temperature, blood pressure, and everything else are normal. Russell said something else, but in her mind, there was a vague understanding that the most important thing was already behind her. And now the path to recovery lay ahead. After the surgery, Kyle spent 2 days in the intensive care unit. Then he was transferred to a regular room, and a week later, he was discharged. Now little Kyle had to undergo a course of rehabilitation and become completely healthy again, just like he was before, a cheerful and lively boy. The trip to Boston didn't bring any significant changes to Russell's life. With Irma, he only had time to discuss the boy's condition. Then he attended the surgery, thanked his colleague for the successfully performed work, and left. He didn't even ask Irma for her phone number. Life went on as usual. Russell immersed himself in work again, and only occasionally thought about the brief business meeting with the woman who stirred his feelings so much. Kyle underwent rehabilitation. Jennifer rejoiced in his recovery. She regularly called Russell, updated him on her son's condition, and thanked the doctor for the help provided. So 6 months flew by. Summer had arrived. In early June, Jennifer called again. This time, the main event she wanted to share was not Kyle's recovery, but a successful financial decision. Russell, hello. Can you imagine? I think I've become rich. I'll have the money tomorrow, and I'll settle with you. Pay back all the debt at once. Russell was amused by Jennifer's joyful tone, and he joked in response. Really, Jennifer? Did you inherit something? Maybe you're a Rockefeller or Rothschild granddaughter. Where did this wealth come from? Tell me, Russell. I'm serious, Jennifer said. Kyle's grandmother, Patrick's mom, sold her country house and is giving me half of the money she got from the sale. Exactly the amount I owe you. Can you believe it? I can imagine, Jennifer. I can imagine, said Russell. And why didn't she sell it earlier, when you were looking for money for the surgery? Well, to be honest, she didn't believe Kyle would recover. She thought the money would be wasted without any benefit. Ah, and now she believes. Is that it? Russell asked, not fully understanding the grandmother's reasons for her generosity. Yes, she does, and it's become difficult for her to go to the countryside, she said. I see. I see. Kyle's grandmother is quite a character. Russell, so I'll bring you the money tomorrow. Will you be at the hospital until 6? Jennifer asked. Yes, until 6. Come by the end of the shift. Let's meet in the garden, on the bench by the entrance. And bring Kyle with you. I haven't seen him in a while. I miss him, Russell replied. See you tomorrow. Jennifer and Kyle waited for the doctor on the bench in the hospital garden, in the place where Russell saw the miserable Jennifer begging for money from her boyfriend on her knees a few months ago. Now Jennifer was unrecognizable. She smiled and spoke tenderly to her son. Approaching the bench, Russell only caught the last words spoken by Jennifer. And you, Kyle, say thank you. Hello, what are you whispering about here? Russell asked, smiling. How glad I am to see you. How are you, Kyle? I'm good, the boy replied, adding, thank you. You're welcome. And you're growing up, becoming quite a big boy. Jennifer stood up from the bench, took an envelope out of her purse, and sincerely addressed Russell. Thank you so much, Russell. Here's everything down to the last penny. You can count it. Oh, come on, Jennifer, Russell said, offended, not intending to take the extended envelope. Why are you like this? I believe you, but I have a question for you. Are you working already or still staying at home with Kyle? No, I'm not working yet. I'll start next month. Why do you ask? Don't you want to take the money? But don't worry, we're fine. We're staying with my mom now. I'm not renting an apartment anymore. I get a subsidy for Kyle, and my mom helps us with groceries. We have everything we need. Please, take it, Jennifer explained. Fine, the doctor said uncertainly. Well, if it's fine, here's the thing. When was the last time you went to the sea? I've never been, Kyle replied. I see. Russell smiled. And what about you, Jennifer? Well, about 10 years ago, when I was in the 10th grade, we went on vacation as a family. Dad was still alive then. Do you want to go again? Russell asked. Won't you accompany me? I have vacation in a week. I want to, Kyle said. Please agree, Jennifer, the doctor requested. You won't have to spend anything. We'll spend the money you brought on the trip. Kyle could really benefit from the fresh sea air. It's good for boosting the immune system. Trust me as a doctor. Agree. And there should be no doubts. Jennifer, I really don't know what to do. Russell, it's so unexpected. I feel awkward. Jennifer hesitated. Again with your money. I just returned it to you, and you'll spend it on us again. It's somehow unfair. Oh, come on. Everything is fair, Russell said. I just want to give this fine young lad a couple of pleasant weeks at the sea. We'll breathe the sea air, see the mountains, enjoy the sunset. We need to change the home environment to the beauty of nature. Can I make such a gift? Ha! Of course, I can. Kyle is willing to accept it. Just my little friend still can't live without his mom, so you must go with us. Consider that we're even. And the trip, that's a completely different story. It should be better than the first one. There shouldn't be any tears of despair, worries, or sleepless nights. Jennifer, agree. Well, if that's the case, then I agree. Let's go. Let it be a birthday gift for Kyle. Jennifer smiled, looking at her son. Well, that's great. Russell rejoiced at the woman's positive response. I'll call you the day after tomorrow, and we'll discuss everything. A week later, they were at the seaside. Their rooms in the guest house were located next to each other, through the wall. Russell heard Kyle talking about something in the evenings, trying to convey his impressions of the white clouds seen through the airplane window, about the deep blue sea they flew over before landing, about palm trees without branches, only long leaves. On the very first day upon arrival, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Russell made his way down to the sea. Sitting on the trunk of a tree once washed ashore by the waves, he couldn't help but search for the spot where Donna and Phineas might have sat, the ones who appeared to him on that day when he lay in the ICU. I think I saw them by that big rock. Phineas was sitting on the rock, and Donna was next to him, Russell reminisced. And then they swam away, dived into the sea. My son asked me to go back to the sick children, to heal them. My dear son, I fulfilled your request. I returned to the sick children. But where are you? Where's Mom? Is she with you? Russell suddenly startled at the unexpected splash of water. About 30 meters away from him, something living appeared above the surface of the sea. It emitted strange sounds, reminiscent of a whistle. A moment later, another creature, smaller in size, emerged. Upon closer inspection, Russell discerned dolphins swimming along the shore. It was a mother dolphin and her calf. Russell wasn't a mystic, but now it seemed to him that he wasn't looking at marine animals, but at his deceased wife Donna and son Phineas. Russell couldn't believe his eyes. He was overwhelmed with excitement and warmth, penetrating his heart. In his imagination, images of marine creatures and beloved people he had lost intertwined. He watched the movements of the dolphin mother and her calf, reminiscent of the moments when Donna and Phineas were by his side. Feeling that this unusual event had a profound meaning, Russell decided to approach the water. He walked slowly and cautiously towards the spot where he had seen the dolphins. As he got closer, the animals stopped making whistling sounds and stared directly at him. Suddenly, it seemed to Russell that an invisible connection had formed between him and the dolphins, as if they understood each other without words. The mother dolphin suddenly emitted a gentle whistle, which sounded familiar to Russell, like a female voice he knew well. It was as if he heard Donna, and her voice echoed in his ears. Russell, my dear, we're here with you. We're always with you. We have forgiven you. These words penetrated Russell's soul and filled his heart with tenderness and love. He no longer doubted that the encounter with the dolphins was not a coincidence. They were sent to him that evening to bring comfort, and to show that the souls of his wife and son were always with him. Russell felt a surge of strength and confidence within himself, once again giving him hope for the future and helping him find solace in the loss of his loved ones. Waving to the dolphins, Russell whispered his gratitude to them, then slowly walked away from the shore and quietly made his way back to the hotel, its windows glowing in the darkness. Peace settled in his heart. He believed that both his wife and son had forgiven him. He believed he had redeemed his sin against his loved ones. The next morning at breakfast, Russell told Jennifer and Kyle about meeting the dolphins the previous evening. The boy listened to the story with great interest, then asked to see them himself. "Well, to see dolphins up close, we need to go to a dolphinarium," Russell said. "There, they perform circus acts, play with balls. I don't want to go to the dolphinarium. I want the mummy and baby dolphin," Kyle insisted. "Son, you understand that dolphins live in the sea, and the sea is vast." Jennifer tried to quell her son's whim and explain the life of dolphins to him. "Yesterday, these animals were here, but today, they're probably swimming elsewhere. Are you going to chase after them, Kyle? Besides, when there are many people on the beach, dolphins don't come close to the shore. You see, you can only observe them through binoculars. Yesterday, I saw them swimming far away, but they look small, like black jumping ducks." "Then we need to buy binoculars," Kyle said, "and look at them through binoculars." "Yes, exactly." Russell supported the boy. "We need to buy binoculars, and we'll definitely do that today." After breakfast, they went into town to buy binoculars. Then they went down to the sea. It was June, but the water in the sea was still not very warm. Apparently, the rains that had been falling incessantly on the coast for a whole week before their arrival had cooled the coastal part of the sea. But Russell still went for a swim, and then he and Kyle started looking through the binoculars. "Dr. Russell, there they are. I see them. The baby dolphin and its mom," Kyle exclaimed happily. "They look so close when you look through the binoculars, and so far when you don't. And the baby dolphin is so cute." Russell also looked to where the little boy pointed, and he saw them, the dolphins from yesterday. They were swimming together. A smile spread across Russell's face. "Yes, Kyle, that's them." The vacation was coming to an end. It was June 30th, Kyle's birthday, and the last day they would spend by the sea. In the morning, they decided to go to the shore to say goodbye and toss the coins Kyle had prepared into the water. The boy believed that they would surely bring him back to this same spot where he swam, sunbathed, and saw the dolphins. Then, after noon, the plans included a festive tea party with cake in honor of Kyle's birthday, as well as a visit to the children's amusement park and a stroll along the promenade. Later, Jennifer and Kyle sat down on a bench on the promenade to admire the sunset before leaving. The scorching sun gradually cooled and slowly sank into the bluish-dark expanse of the sea. Against this magical backdrop appeared the silhouette of a snow-white yacht, slowly gliding along the shore. It was a pleasure boat. Russell involuntarily picked up the binoculars and brought them to his eyes. There were several people on the yacht's deck. The attention of the doctor was drawn to a young, beautiful woman, next to whom sat a girl of about 4 or 5. The woman leaned towards the girl and said something to her. Through the binoculars, Russell recognized Irma, the young tan beauty. Russell looked at his colleague and the girl sitting next to her with surprise. After Kyle's surgery, he and Irma hadn't seen each other. Now, Russell's mind was filled with mixed emotions. On one hand, he was glad to see Irma and know that she was doing well. He felt some sadness, realizing that their relationship had ended and was unlikely to ever resume. The yacht sailed away and after a while completely disappeared from sight, rounding the cape. "Do you know who I saw just now?" Russell asked, turning to Jennifer and Kyle. "More dolphins." The boy perked up. "No, Kyle, not dolphins," Russell replied. "I saw the doctor on that yacht that just sailed by. The one who operated on you in Boston, and Dr. Irma is at sea." Jennifer exclaimed in surprise. What a coincidence. It's a pity we don't know where she's staying. We could have met her and thanked her, showed her how healthy Kyle has become. Russell understood Jennifer very well. This young woman, who had endured so many terrifying days during her son's illness, was ready to thank endlessly those who helped her rescue her child from the clutches of a terrible, merciless disease. Russell looked at Jennifer and smiled at her. Well, unfortunately, we can't meet her now. We have plane tickets. We are flying out tomorrow. So, is it time to go back to the hotel? Russell asked. The guest of honor seems to want to sleep. Do you want to sleep, Kyle? A little. The boy honestly replied. Back at the hotel, Russell began to pack his things into his bag. They needed to return to their hometown tomorrow. Their flight was at 11:20. After finishing preparations for departure, the doctor lay down on the couch and turned on the TV. The air conditioner pleasantly cooled the room. Russell listened to the news of the day, then switched the news channel to entertainment and inadvertently dozed off. He didn't know how long he had been asleep when suddenly he felt a pleasant, gentle touch of someone's hands on his chest. Russell woke up from this touch and was about to sit up from the couch, but a woman's half-whisper stopped him. Russell, you don't need to get up. Lie down. It's me. Jennifer pressed herself closer to Russell, and he felt her strong and warm body trembling. Her passionate kisses enveloped his consciousness like an intoxicating drink, and he began to lose control of himself. However, he moved away from her and asked Jennifer to stop. He felt afraid of himself, afraid of what might happen. Please, Jennifer, don't continue. Leave me, Russell said, struggling to release her fingers. Jennifer stepped back, stunned. The bluish light from the TV screen illuminated her bewildered and frightened expression. A mix of disappointment and incomprehension reflected in her eyes. You don't want me? You repelled by me? She asked, bewildered. But I thought that. She suddenly covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. His heart was pounding so hard that he could barely hear his own words. Jennifer, you know, lately I've been taking relationships between men and women too seriously. To come together intimately, the soul and body must be one, united in impulse. People are not animals. They shouldn't come together on a whim, just because the body or the instinct of reproduction demands it. It's much more complex. Jennifer, calm down. Don't cry. I'm ashamed. Russell, Jennifer whispered. There, on the promenade, you smiled. I thought I could somehow thank you. Forgive me. I'll go. What if Kyle wakes up? I'm sorry. Jennifer left. Russell took a shower, turned off the TV, and went to bed. But he couldn't fall asleep peacefully and deeply. Those few minutes he spent in half-sleep disrupted his rest. Moreover, the impressions of the last day shook his consciousness too much. He didn't expect Jennifer to be so frank. Although he understood, explained, and even didn't judge her actions. No, Jennifer wasn't like that. She just didn't understand why this grown man, essentially a stranger, did something for her and her son without demanding anything in return. She wasn't used to living like that. Her visit today was an expression of gratitude, a desire not to remain in debt, a foolish attempt to repay for her son's well-being, for his health. Russell understood Jennifer and didn't judge her. The memory of the yacht cruising the evening sea surfaced in his mind. Irma was on the deck. Why couldn't he part with this woman? Fate was teasing him again. Why did he look at that yacht? After all, he could have been on the promenade without binoculars, could have simply ignored the passing vessel. After all, in the country, there are millions of people, tens of millions. To meet two acquaintances from this multitude in the vastness of the country is almost impossible. It happens that even in a small town, people don't see each other for years. And here, he's such a meeting. Russell suddenly felt that it wasn't a coincidence, as if someone else, invisible and all-powerful, was intervening in their relationship, into his life. He commands and makes them do as he pleases. Before his eyes was Irma again, sailing away on the white yacht. The girl sitting next to her, for some reason, seemed painfully familiar to Russell. Where could he have seen her? Maybe she reminded him of one of his little patients. After all, over the years of work, there were several hundred of them. But no, he remembered each one. All the children who passed through his hands are still remembered by Russell. Each child lived in his memory separately because each of them had their own story of illness, departure from life, or recovery. Perhaps she's her daughter. Then, in Boston, after talking about Kyle's condition before his surgery, Russell tried to find out from Irma how she had been living all this time, if she had a family. But the woman was reticent. He still remembers the few phrases she uttered. As you see, I'm alive, not dead. Why dwell on the past, Russell? And now I'm doing well. I'm very sorry that you lost your wife and son. I sincerely sympathize with you. So where did he see that freckled red-haired girl? A new day was beginning outside. There were only a few hours left before departure, and Russell finally drifted off into a short, restless sleep. Russell suddenly had an unusual dream. He almost never dreamed of his mother, and now he saw her, as if alive, and even talked to her. As if he woke up in his little room from the muted sounds of dishes coming from behind the closed door. Mom. Beloved. Tender. Real. She was home today. Today she didn't go to work. It was her day off. By the delicious smell, Russell guessed that his mom was baking pancakes. He casually put on his slippers and went to the kitchen. To his mom. She was in a nice dress, wearing an apron, bustling at the table, setting the dishes, putting jam on the pancakes. Seeing Russell in the kitchen doorway, she said affectionately, "You're awake already, dear." "Awake," Russell replied to her. "Mom, why do you call me dear?" "Because you're the most precious thing to me in this world," his mom answered with a smile, approaching Russell and patting him on the head. "You're my sunshine. Look at yourself in the mirror. You're like gold. You even have specks of gold on your face." Russell, obeying his mom, looked at his reflection in the mirror. "These aren't specks of gold, Mom, and my hair isn't golden. Those are freckles. I have freckles, and I'm a redhead. All the boys tease me." "Oh, come on, Russell, you're golden," his mom reassured him. "And the boys are just jealous of you. That's why they tease you. You're my little sunshine." After waking up, Russell lay with his eyes closed for a few more minutes. He didn't want to part with the feeling conveyed in the dream, with the feeling of carefree childhood, the warmth radiated by his mother. He wanted to spend a few more minutes with her, talk, ask her something. Finally, Russell opened his eyes and sat up in bed. The room was quiet, with only a faint sunlight streaming through the curtains. He got up and walked to the window, pulling back the curtains. The sea, blue and boundless. It was calm. It beckoned to him. But today they wouldn't go to its shore. They wouldn't enjoy the gentle rustle of the waves. They wouldn't breathe in the unforgettable scent of the sea breeze. Because today they were leaving. Leaving very soon. In the plane, Russell mentally returned to his morning dream. Suddenly, he realized who the girl he saw yesterday on the yacht with Irma resembled. "It's a spitting image of me." A startling realization dawned on Russell. The same freckles on the face, the same hair color. "Do I really have a daughter?" Russell sat in his seat, looking out the window. But his thoughts were far from the clouds outside. He tried to make sense of everything that had happened the day before. Yesterday on the yacht, he saw a girl who was surprisingly familiar to him. The sight of her freckled face and red hair stirred up a feeling of nostalgia in Russell. It seemed to him that he had seen her before, but he simply couldn't have seen her earlier. Today's dream explained everything. His mother, his kind and gentle mother. She explained this puzzle with just one word. But then why did Irma herself remain silent? Russell's thoughts returned to Irma. They met many years ago. Circumstances forced Russell to part with her. It was a forced departure back then. Russell didn't realize or appreciate his actions. He was preoccupied with Phineas's illness, the danger of losing him forever. The sudden forced departure didn't put a period in their relationship. They just don't talked about it when they parted ways. Then, for several years, Russell simply couldn't come to terms with the loss of his dearest and most beloved people. He avoided acquaintances and relationships with women, blamed himself for betraying his family, for betraying his wife who gave him a son and who loved him. He considered himself guilty of everything that happened and tried to atone for his sinful betrayal. He worked to exhaustion, seeking some kind of solace and redemption for his sins. Understanding that he had a daughter was a staggering revelation for Russell. He couldn't contain his emotions. The man experienced mixed feelings of joy and bitterness at the same time. On one hand, he was happy to have a child, but on the other hand, he felt resentful towards Emma for hiding the birth of their daughter from him. The plane continued to soar above the land. Powerful engines hummed rhythmically on both sides of the liner. At some point, Russell suddenly felt that he might be mistaken. The child might not be his. Even if the girl's age matched the time he hadn't seen her mother, even if she had the same red hair as he did in his childhood, it didn't necessarily mean she was his daughter. Perhaps after his departure, Emma met someone else and became his wife. Perhaps he, too, had red hair, just like Russell. There were many questions, and without Emma, Russell couldn't find the right answers to them. Russell decided to call Emma as soon as he got home. He knew the clinic's phone number. Perhaps the woman would agree to meet and talk. Now it was obvious to Russell that the chapter of life that began 5 years ago remained unfinished. Once home, Russell dropped Jennifer and Kyle off. He promised to visit them and asked them not to forget about him, at least to call him sometimes. Jennifer seemed tense as they said goodbye. Apparently, whatever had happened the night before troubled her. She felt guilty. At home, Russell unpacked his bag and took a bath. Then he turned on his computer and started searching for any information about Emma. Russell hoped to find her social media profile online, where there might be photos or other details about her and her daughter. He typed Emma's name into the search engine, hoping to find her account on popular social media platforms. The browser returned Russell several dozen pages. After browsing through many pages, Russell realized that Emma, like himself, didn't have a personal page on any of the popular social media platforms. If Emma Webster appeared anywhere, it was only on the website of the clinic where Kyle had his surgery and among the faculty of one of the medical schools in Boston. But it was too early to despair. Russell decided to call the clinic where Emma worked in a couple of weeks. He hoped that by then she would have returned from vacation and resumed work. Upon returning, Russell still had a few days off. He decided to spend one of them visiting the city cemetery to visit the graves of his loved ones, his mother, his wife Donna, and his son Phineas. On the way, he reflected on how much his life had changed after their passing. He remembered how his mother always supported him, gave him advice, and was there for him. How he adored his family, Donna and Phineas, who always lifted his spirits and inspired him to achieve new goals. Visiting the graves of his loved ones allowed Russell to feel their presence and reminisce about all the happy moments they had spent together. Russell stopped in front of his mother's grave. He laid flowers and sat down on a bench. He remembered how she smiled and always found words of encouragement in any situation. His heart filled with warmth and gratitude for everything she had done for him. Russell promised himself that he would live to justify her hopes and be as strong and kind as his mother wanted him to be. As wife and son, he remembered how they spent happy family days together, how he played with his little son, how they and Donna rejoiced in his first steps. After spending several hours at the cemetery, Russell once again realized that his loved ones would always live in his heart, and their departure did not mean that the spiritual connection between them was severed. Russell returned home with a sense of duty fulfilled and a desire to continue his life filled with new meaning. 3 weeks had passed since his return from the sea. Russell had already returned from his vacation and was once again performing surgeries on his young patients, fighting for their lives. However, thoughts of Irma and that girl still troubled him. Perhaps Irma had already returned and was now in Boston. Russell decided to call the clinic and, if possible, speak with Irma. And today was the day he planned to do just that. After finishing his shift, he entered his office and dialed the number. "Hello, hello," greeted Russell the girl who picked up the phone on the other end of the line. "Can I speak with Irma Webster, please? My name is Russell Fowler. Could you connect me, please?" And Russell heard the dial tone connecting him to Irma. He heard her pick up the phone and, finally, her painfully familiar voice. "Webster, I'm listening. Go ahead," she said. "Hello, Irma. It's me, Russell Fowler." "Russell, it's you. Hello," Irma said. "I didn't expect to hear from you. What's happened? Tell me." "Irma, we need to talk," Russell said. "Talk? Well, go ahead. I'm here, listening to you. Is something wrong with that boy? Tell me." "No, Irma, the boy is fine. Thank you. It's about a personal matter. Do you have time?" "Personal? Russell, this is a work number, you know. Besides, I really don't have time right now. Give me your mobile number. I'll call you back later, perhaps tonight." And after dictating his number, Russell hung up the phone. Back at home, Russell eagerly awaited Irma's call. He didn't let go of the phone, afraid of missing her call. The words he intended to say to Irma demanded to be spoken. It was 10 o'clock in the evening. She didn't call. The man couldn't sit still in his bachelor apartment. He turned the TV on and off several times. He boiled the kettle, but never started drinking the tea. He waited for her call. Finally, at 10:30, Irma called. His heart pounded wildly. The man grabbed the phone and answered the call. "Hello, Irma." "Hello, Russell. Sorry, I know it's late, but I couldn't call earlier," she apologized. "I had classes at the institute today, lectures, students. By the time I got home it was already 10:30. So, what did you want to talk to me about?" "I'm listening, Irma," Russell began, unsure of how to say the most important thing, the thing that had been troubling him for weeks. "I might be mistaken, but I think I saw you at the end of last month at the sea. Was I mistaken? Please answer." "No, you weren't mistaken. I was." "Wait, where exactly did you see me and why didn't I see you? Were you hiding from me?" Russell suddenly felt like Irma in Boston was barely holding back laughter. Indeed, the conversation seemed to take on some idiotic meaning. Why should Irma now tell him where she was last month and what she was doing? Realizing the absurdity of his questions, Russell spoke directly. "Irma, I was at the beach when you were sailing on the yacht. There was a little girl sitting next to you. His daughter. Well, I mean, your daughter." Irma hesitated in her response, as if recalling that yacht trip. And then she answered simply and plainly, Yes, we were vacationing with my daughter, Aline." "With Aline?" Russell asked again. "Aline, beautiful name. Listen, Irma, do I have any relation to her? I mean, could she be my daughter?" "No, Russell, she's only my daughter. And sorry, it's late." Irma hurried. "I have a tough day tomorrow. Let's talk later. I'm really tired. Goodbye, good night." She ended the call. The phone went silent. The display lit up for a few more seconds, then went dim. That night, Russell couldn't sleep for a long time. Irma's negative answer and her refusal to continue the conversation sparked protest and incomprehension in the doctor's mind. He wanted to call her back immediately after she hung up and demand explanations. Why does Aline look so much like him? But the man restrained himself. Cooled down, he realized that all these outbursts would lead to absolutely no results. Irma wouldn't allow him to speak to her in such a tone. She would simply hang up the phone again, and probably never answer his calls again, putting him on the blacklist. Russell remembered Irma's character. She doesn't tolerate being forced into anything or having her personal life intruded upon. That's not how you deal with Irma. Jennifer hadn't called Russell since they returned. He understood that after that night, it was difficult for her to initiate conversation. Perhaps she still blamed herself for her actions. So, he called her himself. Jennifer was glad to hear from him. Russell, everything's fine with us. Hello. Kyle started school. I went back to work. How are you doing? What's new? Still at the same job? Yes, Jennifer. Still the same. The man replied. Say hi to Kyle. Tell him the doctor remembers him and wishes him all the best. Especially good health. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'll tell him. He often remembers you. I'll come visit you sometime if you don't mind. Russell promised. I miss you too. Goodbye. Russell found this young woman pleasant. She was as bright as Donna had been. He had often noted this similarity. They and his wife seemed like sisters. One slightly older, the other younger. Perhaps he had wrongly pushed her away that night. Maybe Jennifer would have become as loving and devoted to him as Donna. But Russell also understood something else. He feared that the story that happened to him 5 years ago might repeat itself. He knew well that his heart beat stronger, and a feeling of joy flared up inside him only in the presence of one woman. Irma Webster. Why deceive himself? In Russell's heart, there was a hope that one evening Irma would still call him. He would hear that exhilarating voice again. His head would spin from that voice once more. He would feel happy again. She would tell him about Arlene, invite him to visit them. And he, of course, would rush to them. Tow her back into the night, to be with them as the first rays of a new happy day dawned. But a whole month passed, and Irma still hadn't called. Russell decided to call her first. He called her on Saturday evening, hoping she was free from surgeries and her students. Russell dialed the number and waited anxiously for a response. However, Irma didn't answer the phone. The call rang, but no one picked up. She didn't answer. Disappointed by Irma's silence, Russell called Jennifer. Kyle answered. Hello, this is Kyle. The boy said, I'll get Mom. Please don't hang up, Kyle. Russell said happily. Wait, let's talk. It's me, Dr. Russell. How are you, dear Russell? Kyle asked. Hello, I'm doing well. I go to school. I like studying. And how are you doing? Well, I'm doing fine too. Russell replied. I go to work every day, come home in the evening, and then go back to work in the morning. But honestly, life feels dull. Hey, how about we all go on a picnic together sometime? You, your mom, and me. What do you think? Kyle, I'm not against it. The boy agreed. I'll tell Mom to take the phone. Wait, hello. Hello, Jennifer. Russell said. Kyle and I just agreed to go on a picnic out of town. Are you in? Can we do it tomorrow? Thanks, Jennifer. Great. So, let's meet tomorrow at 10 at your entrance. Yes, that's settled. See you at exactly 10 o'clock the next morning. Russell pulled up to the house where Jennifer and Kyle lived. The mom and the boy were ready for the picnic, waiting for Russell. They decided to head to the meadow outside the city, a favorite local relaxation spot. There were sports fields where you could play volleyball or tennis, and a small lake. With a smile on his face, Russell stepped out of the car and approached Jennifer and Kyle. Hey there. You guys are great. Not even late. All right. Hop in and let's go. As they drove, Jennifer told Russell about her work, how Kyle was adjusting to the new routine of life, and his successes in school. Russell listened with interest, smiling. Here we are, almost there, Russell cheerfully said, turning off the road. There weren't many people at the meadow that day, so they quickly found a cozy spot under the trees, and Russell began unloading the necessary things for their outing. Jennifer spread a blanket on the ground and set up an improvised table. Kyle ran around the meadow picking flowers, and soon they all settled down to eat. Well, hot dogs and pies may not be the healthiest food, Russell said, but it's tasty. Kyle, your mom cooks great. I haven't had such a pie in a long time. So delicious. Only Donna used to bake like that. My wife. Dear Russell, why don't you marry my mom? Then she'll always cook pies like this for you. Kyle suddenly said. Russell almost choked, but after swallowing a piece of pie, he managed to respond to the boy. Well, my friend, we need to think about your proposal. Jennifer blushed at her son's words. Her fresh cheeks slightly reddened, and she, giving her voice an intentionally stern tone, said to Kyle, okay, maybe someone forgot how boring and unpleasant it is to be punished. After the picnic, they enjoyed the beautiful weather and the nature surrounding them. Russell and Jennifer played tennis. Kyle also attempted to hit the ball with the racket. They laughed when Kyle missed and clumsily fell on the grass. Then they walked along forest paths and reached a spring, from which they filled a bottle with fresh spring water. Time flew by unnoticed. Evening was approaching. It was time to leave. Neatly tidying up their resting place, Russell, Jennifer, and little Kyle packed up and got into the car. On the way home, they decided to definitely repeat the picnic at the beginning of autumn, when the foliage would turn and the forest would be enchantingly beautiful. They arrived in the city in the evening. Kyle fell asleep on the way, laying his head on his mom's lap. Parking the car right at the entrance to the building, Russell carried the sleeping boy to the apartment, said goodbye to Jennifer, and went home. The time spent with them made Russell a little happier. It was as if he had visited his own family again, with his loved ones. Kyle's proposal to marry his mom at the picnic didn't leave Russell indifferent. Today, Russell looked at Jennifer differently. Her toned and slender figure clad in sportswear still lingered in his mind. It seemed she was becoming someone he cared about. Back at the beach, he saw her partially undressed in a swimsuit. But then he could look at Jennifer calmly, without any desire. Maybe it was because all the women on the beach were in swimsuits, and the swimsuit didn't distinguish anyone and was accustomed to the male gaze. Russell was well past 30, and thoughts of starting a new family often crossed his mind. Before the trip, he found himself repenting to his son and wife. He blamed himself for his little son's death solely because he didn't receive timely medical help. If Russell had been more attentive to Phineas's health and had undergone a comprehensive medical examination with him a few months earlier, perhaps the insidious illness could have been defeated, eradicated at an early stage. But he didn't do it, even though he was a doctor himself, which only compounded his guilt. He couldn't save Donna either, and perhaps he could have spared her from the fatal line, could have shown her more attention in those dreadful days. For all these years, he couldn't live without remembering the loss of his dearest people. Not a single day, not a single hour. And now the pain had subsided a bit. After the vacation, he felt calmer. The feeling of guilt had dulled, and the sorrow was gradually dissipating. Russell understood that what had happened couldn't be undone, and he needed to move on. He viewed his return to life differently after experiencing clinical death. If he didn't follow Phineas and Donna, then it was meant to be. That's what the higher powers ordained. It meant that God wanted Russell to come to his senses and continue his earthly journey. Russell greeted the start of a new work week in good spirits. Yesterday's trip to nature had cheered him up and refreshed him. Thoughts of Jennifer and Kyle inspired hope for further meetings. After finishing his shift, Russell returned home. He parked his car, dashed into the supermarket to buy groceries for dinner, and was about to take the elevator to the 7th floor when he suddenly noticed his mailbox. It was evident that there was a letter inside. Opening it, Russell found a summons. The city military enlistment office demanded that Russell Fowler come to the office at the appointed time. Russell wasn't surprised by the summons. He was a reserve officer. In medical school, there was a military department. So, along with his surgeon's diploma, he received the rank of medical service lieutenant. Later, after short courses, he was promoted to senior lieutenant. Now, as he hoped, it was time for another retraining. Russell understood that the gatherings were not only an opportunity to maintain his physical and professional readiness, but also a chance to meet his former classmates. Before heading to the assembly point, Russell decided to call Jennifer and inform her about his departure. However, he couldn't reach her. Jennifer's phone was turned off. The first days were tense and exciting. During the training, Russell met many of his classmates. Almost all of them were married, with families and children. Upon learning that Russell was unmarried, they jokingly envied him, saying they wouldn't mind being in his shoes, going for a stroll like in their youth, breathing in the air of freedom, forgetting about household and family problems for a while. In reality, Russell envied them. It was they, the married ones, who smiled and rejoiced in their family happiness when their wives called them in the evenings during their free time, telling them about their children's successes or antics. It was they who fell asleep in the evenings with smiles on their faces, remembering their home, their loved ones, anticipating the long-awaited and happy reunion with them. One evening during the training, Russell suddenly imagined his return to the city. Who would greet him? Who would be happy about his return? The answer was obvious. No one. Just an empty apartment. It was during the training that Russell seriously contemplated his future life. He realized the need to part with his loneliness. Loneliness had become unbearable. It weighed him down, making him feel inadequate and incomplete. Russell remembered Jennifer. During their time together, she had become almost like family to Russell. Now, he suddenly wanted to see her, to get closer to her, to see her great trusting eyes, to hear her pleasant voice. Upon his return, Russell suddenly felt the desire to surprise Jennifer. He planned to meet her in the evening when she finished work and headed to the bus stop. When she left the store, he would pull up beside her, roll down the car window, and offer her a ride home. He hoped Jennifer would be delighted to see him. Finally, the training was over. Russell returned to the city. Before carrying out his plan, he wanted to make sure that Jennifer was at work. He arrived at the store where she worked at 5:30 in the evening. The supermarket was quite crowded. The girls sitting at the cash registers were working like clockwork. They didn't look around for a second. They scanned the products, mechanically packed groceries into baskets, punched in the prices of the items purchased, tore off and handed out receipts to the customers. Jennifer was one of these girls. She worked as focused as the other cashiers, so Russell, watching her from the street through the glass wall, of course, went unnoticed. At 10 minutes to 11 in the evening, Russell was in the supermarket parking lot. It was evident that the store was preparing to close. There were hardly any late shoppers. Only one cash register was open. The other sellers were probably closing down their cash registers or getting ready to leave their workplace. Russell eagerly awaited Jennifer's appearance, and there she was, already appearing at the store's entrance. Russell started the car engine with a familiar movement and drove towards her. But something went wrong. The car suddenly stalled, and a white car approached Jennifer from the parking lot side. A young man got out of it, kissed her on the cheek, opened the car door, and she, bending down, jumped into the car. Russell suddenly felt a sense of emptiness. He clenched his fists painfully, gritted his teeth, then abruptly relaxed his muscles and exhaled loudly. He took several deep breaths, trying to calm himself down. And finally, having calmed down, he managed to drive away. Returning home, Russell undressed, washed his hands, and went to the kitchen. The nervous tension had dissipated, but a feeling of loss and longing still haunted him. He opened the door of the kitchen cabinet and took out a bottle of brandy. He poured himself a glass and drank it, then lay down on the couch and sank into his thoughts. He understood that Jennifer was not available. She had every right to do as she pleased. She was an adult, independent person. After all, she had once tried to get closer to him, but he himself had rejected her, showing some absurd caution and prudishness. The alcohol he drank subtly clouded Russell's mind. He turned onto his side and drifted into a deep sleep. October turned out to be cold and rainy. By the end of the month, frosts began, and autumn presented several icy rains. Russell was absorbed in his work, performing surgeries and observing patients. In his free time in the evenings, he read literature on pediatric oncology. Gradually, the doctor began to forget about his failures in his personal life. Perhaps consciously, because besides sadness and disappointment, his personal life, after the departure of his loved ones to another world, brought him nothing good. Russell no longer hoped to change anything. He simply accepted it, as it was calmer and more productive to live in this world. The meaning of his life became clearer now. He lived to help his patients daily, to alleviate their suffering. That evening, Russell was at home. He had no duty. As usual, he had a light dinner and started preparing an article. His former academic supervisor, with whom the doctor had stayed in touch after graduating from medical school, approved his idea of writing a scientific article. The professor even told him so. It will be informative and useful. Be sure to write it. Good luck to you, Russell, said the professor. The phone rang at the most inappropriate moment when Russell was putting another thought into words. It seemed that the phone was ringing too loudly. The display showed the name of the caller, Irma. To say that the call was unexpected would be an understatement. Russell couldn't express in words what he felt at that moment. He pressed the answer button and brought the phone to his ear. "Hello, Russell," she said. "It's Irma." "Hello," Russell replied, trying to hide the excitement in his voice. "Sorry if I'm disturbing you from urgent matters or pleasant activities. But sorry if I disturbed you. I'll be brief," she said. "Irma, what are you talking about? I'm glad. I'm very glad you called. You're not distracting me from anything. I'm at home, just sitting, watching TV." Russell lied a little. "Is something wrong with you?" She didn't answer his question, but asked her own. "Do you remember our last conversation? You told me you were at sea, that you saw me on a yacht, and asked who the girl was with me. Remember?" "Yes, of course," Russell confirmed. "You didn't answer my question then. You promised to call back. I called you later, but you didn't answer, didn't pick up the phone." "Yes, that's true," Irma admitted. "I didn't answer the question or the call." She suddenly fell silent. Then, from where she called, a stranger's voice was heard. But it was impossible to make out what the unknown person was saying. The voice sounded muffled and indistinct. A second later, Irma was back on the line. "Russell, I'm sorry. Someone came to me. I'll be occupied for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's urgent. Please stay on the line. I'll call you back. Don't turn off your phone." Yes. Okay, call me. I'll keep the phone with me," Russell replied. After hanging up, Russell waited for the continuation of the conversation. He understood that some circumstances compelled Irma to call his number and resume their communication. But what exactly made her do this? He could only speculate. But Russell didn't want to speculate. He was sure that she would call back in a few minutes, and he would learn something very important. Of course, Russell was primarily interested in knowing about the girl he had seen with Irma on the sea a few months ago. Was she his daughter or not? By appearance and age, she could have been his daughter. But perhaps he was mistaken. Why didn't Irma open up to him right away? What was the reason? These questions arose in his mind, but he couldn't find the answers. The wait for the call dragged on. It had been over 15 minutes since Irma ended the call, but there was still no new call from her. Russell started to get nervous. Finally, the phone rang again. Russell picked up the receiver. Irma spoke as if she had overcome some pain. "Russell, I'm sorry I'm delayed again. You must be anxious, but I won't be long. Please, take a pen and paper. I'll dictate the address to you." The man opened the notebook lying on the desk and took a pen. "Irma, I'm ready. Go ahead," he said. She dictated the address and added, "Find me at this address. I'll wait for you until the end of the week. Today is Thursday. We'll talk about everything here, in person. Last time, you asked about my daughter. I'll tell you everything. Now just tell me one thing. Will you come or? I won't be upset even if you refuse. I just need to know, should I wait for you or not?" I'll come. Of course," The man replied, "On Saturday in the afternoon, yes. Good. Then see you." "Good night to you, Russell." A wish for a good night after an invitation to come to an unfamiliar address. That's her style, Russell noted to himself. Another intrigue. Another lack of clarity. "Good night to you, Russell." Before going to bed, Russell decided to find out some information about the address Irma had dictated. At least how to get there. He entered the street name and house number into the search bar. The browser displayed the location and the name of the institution, Medical Rehabilitation Center. Russell wasn't particularly surprised by the search result. Perhaps Irma worked or had a side job at this rehabilitation center, as she was a sought-after, well-known surgeon. Early Saturday morning, Russell set out on his trip. He didn't know what awaited him in the meeting with the woman who had become fatal for him several years ago. The woman who, he believed all these years, had been the cause of his family's unhappiness, but with whom he experienced the most intense feelings of genuine delight, intoxicating, unforgettable feelings of love and bliss. Russell wasn't a philosopher, but suddenly he wanted to reflect on what would have happened to him and his family if he hadn't met Irma. Perhaps he would have visited his family more often while on business trips, because in the first month of his stay in Boston, he had come home 3 times, finding time for it. And if he hadn't gotten close to Irma, it could have continued for the remaining 2 months. But during those 2 months, he hadn't gone home once, only calling. He said he didn't have time, that he was very tired during the work week, and wanted to rest on weekends, not spend several hours behind the wheel. If Russell had visited his family more often, as a doctor, he would have noticed that something was wrong with his son, that he wasn't healthy. Then he and Donna would have turned to doctors in time, undergone examinations, and perhaps their son's treatment would not have been delayed. On the contrary, it might have been successful, and his child could be with him now. But that didn't happen. Late speculations and conjectures did not provide a definite answer. They only reopened old wounds. And perhaps everything happened exactly as it did. And in vain he blamed himself and Irma for the spark that ignited between them, for the closeness that occurred then. Perhaps Phineas and Donna were meant to leave so early. The 6-hour journey was coming to an end. Russell was approaching Boston, where a meeting with Irma awaited him. And perhaps with the girl who might turn out to be his daughter. Russell reached the designated place fairly quickly. A security guard inspected the car at the entrance to the medical facility, checked the documents, noted something in the logbook, and let Russell through. Opening the entrance door to the rehabilitation center, Russell felt some excitement. Upon entering the building, Russell found himself under the scrutiny of another guard, who also subjected him to inspection and inquired about the purpose of his visit. Finally, Russell approached the duty nurse sitting at the administrator's desk. "Hello." Russell greeted her and asked, "Where can I see Irma Webster?" "Hello," replied the middle-aged duty nurse, putting on her glasses and searching for the named surname in the patient registration journal. "Something's not right here," Russell thought to himself. At the clinic where Kyle had his operation, all the staff knew Irma, and here they were looking for the surname in the registered patient's journal. So, she's not a doctor here, but a patient. The nurse finally found the surname and said, "Okay, Webster, in room 207. And who are you to her?" "A relative." "Yes, I'm a relative," Russell replied. "Can I see her?" "I don't know. You'll have to ask Dr. Parker." "Let's go to him," the nurse replied. Dr. Parker nodded. "Yes, come in," he said, addressing Russell. "Irma mentioned you. She's waiting for you." Irma was alone in the room. From what surrounded her, Russell understood that she was confined to the bed. The woman couldn't stand up or move freely. "Irma, hello," Russell said, not believing his eyes and sincerely regretting the woman's condition. "Irma, what happened to you? How did this happen?" "Hello, Russell." Irma attempted to smile. "Here's what happened. Sit down. This conversation will be lengthy. And thank you for coming." Amma spoke little about her current condition and how she ended up in the hospital bed. Returning home from work, she got caught in freezing rain, lost control of her car, and ended up in a ditch. In the end, I have a spinal fracture and pelvic bone fractures. The prognosis is bleak. Permanent disability is possible, she said with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, then fell silent, looking out the window before asking, "And how about you, Russell? Still working in the same place?" Yeah, still the same," Russell replied, trying to reassure Irma. "Don't worry. Things will work out. You'll recover." She smiled again and continued, "Maybe. But for now, I'm disabled. Helpless. I don't know for how long. As long as there's money, they'll treat me, take care of me. But then it's uncertain. But I'm not talking about myself. You know, I have a daughter, Aline. You mentioned seeing her and asked if you had any connection to her birth." "Yes, Russell. She's really your daughter." Russell breathed a sigh of relief after those words. Sparks of happiness ignited in his eyes, and for the first time in many years, he felt a new sense of significance, need, and necessity within himself. Amma continued, "Sorry. At first, I didn't want to tell you about our daughter. I understood that you have a wife and son, that I'm somewhat guilty before them. Maybe that's true, but God has already punished me for it. I'm responsible for our daughter, for her future. Understand, besides me, she has no one. If I don't recover after a while and won't be able to take care of her in the future, the guardianship authorities will have to put her in an orphanage. Russell, do you understand what I mean? I don't want that. I understand everything, Irma. My daughter won't be raised in an orphanage. I promise. I want to see her, want to meet Aline. Why did you hide her from me for so long?" "I don't know," the woman replied. "Perhaps it was some kind of feminine selfishness. I thought I didn't need anyone's help. I was strong and successful. I thought I could raise her on my own. I really don't know why I didn't tell you about her. Forgive me, Russell. Please forgive me." Russell drove through the evening Boston in a state he had never experienced before. It was joy mixed with feelings of worry and uncertainty. He was thrilled that he would meet his daughter, a little girl who shared his blood. He didn't know, couldn't imagine, what kind of environment she lived in before his appearance and how she lives now, how she speaks, laughs, and gets upset. Russell didn't know what she loves and what she doesn't. He knew nothing about her. He was even afraid to enter her home. He understood that he hadn't given her anything she has now. Russell was going to her space, where he might not be accepted, where he might be superfluous in the eyes of this little princess. "Are you Russell Fowler?" asked the charming 45-year-old nanny who opened the door to the apartment. "Yes, that's me," Russell replied. "Well then, come in. Aline is waiting for you. Irma just called." Aline was in her room, engrossed in drawing, when Russell entered the children's room. The girl looked at him with curiosity and disbelief, and asked, "Mom said you are my dad. Is that true?" "Yes, Aline, it's true," Russell replied, unsure of what else to say. "Are you not going to Antarctica anymore?" the girl asked. "No, sweetheart, I'm not going. I'm back with you forever. Forever, dear," Russell assured her. 3 years had passed since that day. One weekend, Russell decided to show Aline and Irma the city where he was born and raised. They strolled along the waterfront, and Russell enthusiastically told them about his childhood and youth. His daughter and wife listened, smiling. "Russell, Irma, hello." Suddenly came a voice from a passing young family. Russell, Irma, and Aline stopped and turned to the female voice. Before them stood Jennifer and Kyle Frost. A man stood nearby, gently rocking a baby stroller. "Jennifer, Kyle," Russell exclaimed joyfully. "Hello." He turned to Irma. "Irma, do you remember the boy I brought to Boston for surgery? Well, this is him, Kyle Frost." Look how grown up he is. They chatted for a few minutes. Jennifer sincerely thanked Russell and Emma for their help. She wished them health and happiness. Their trip to Russell's hometown came to an end. The lights of Boston appeared in the distance.